Hello? Okay. Am I on the show? Okay. All right. A little confusion. We had very little time to get going, but here I am, and the show is on. And behind me is Washington D.C., and I have Zillow on. So I'm going to try to move the screen a little bit and see what I can do. As I've said many times before, I am very lucky over here to have access to a blue screen and to a really great set of programs. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and take a look at the Washington Monument and place it behind me and over my shoulder. And what better symbol could I possibly have than the Washington Monument? And what am I going to talk about but Washington and the Foley scandal? Now, please take into account that I am coming to you and taping this on a Friday. The earliest you can possibly see it is on a Saturday, and you'll probably more likely see it the following Tuesday. And I'm going to be on business travel next week, so you're probably going to be beset with this completely out of date discussion 2 weeks from now. And who knows what's going to happen within the next 2 weeks. However, I have done a lot of shows on the problems in the Republican Congress. I myself am a Republican, and I've been that way for a long time. But I'm more of the McCain variety of Republican, as opposed to the delay type. So while I consider myself a conservative, I'm the old kind of conservative, the kind of guy who wants to balance the budget, who believes in a strong military and a strong federal government, a lot of protections, a lot of government out of your business if you don't work for the government. And if you do work for the government, I want an efficient and effective government, and especially an efficient and effective military, because I think it's absolutely important that we win the war on terror instead of try to tie it, which is what they've done so far. So I've done shows about Tom DeLay. Tom DeLay was the #2 guy, but actually the most important person who had been in the Republican Congress. He was the majority leader, and before that the majority whip, and he's the guy who funneled money for the campaigns to all the other congressmen. He got caught up in the Jack Abramoff scandal, which I've talked about a lot, and even more so, he got caught up in a bunch of other things, including money laundering, try to change the complexion of the legislature in Texas from Democrat to Republican, and he funneled money illegally into the legislature in Texas, and got forced through a mid-census period redistricting of Texas, which is why there's 5 extra Republican seats in the House right now that wouldn't be there if this hadn't been done. So I'm not going to get into the details of that scandal, but I have talked about it. And now we have a scandal right before the congressional elections. Congressional elections, for those of you who know, 33 Senate seats are up for election November, and every single seat in the House of Representatives. The Democrats are out about 15 seats right now. So if there's a reversal of 15 seats, actually every seat that goes to a Democrat that was a Republican seat changes the picture by 2. So technically the Republicans are 30 seats ahead of the Democrats, but the Democrats are helped. Every seat they win that was a Republican seat, they're basically 2 closer to taking over the House of Representatives. What happens if they do take over the House of Representatives? Then all of a sudden their leader becomes the Speaker of the House. Now, the Speaker of the House is the number 3 person in the succession for the presidency, which makes it a very, very important position. But it also, the House is set up so whoever is Speaker of the House basically has complete control over the agenda. He can basically stop legislation in its tracks or send it to a committee. He gets to appoint almost all, in fact, all the committee chairmen. All the committee chairmen belong to the majority party. So the majority party has an unbelievable amount of power, especially in the House. Senate is a little bit different. The actual Speaker of the Senate, so to speak, the person who presides over the Senate, although it happens very rarely, is the Vice President of the United States, according to the Constitution. However, the majority leader is usually the most powerful individual. But in the Senate, debate can occur, and debate can be kept from stopping by only 40 senators. So in order to get complete power over the Senate, you need to have 61 senators in one party, which even the Republicans don't have. It's close to, I think, 55-45. So with one independent. So in order for the Democrats to gain in the Senate, they need to get 5 seats that are now held by Republicans. In order for them to gain in the House of Representatives, they need 15 seats that are now held by Republicans. They also have to keep every single seat that they have. There's been a case in recent history of both parties switching from, in this case, Democrat to Republican in one election. Both parties being swept by the opposite party. And in that case, that was 1994. And ironically, that brings me to the Mark Foley scandal, because he got into Congress in 1994. And who is Mark Foley? Mark Foley is a congressman from the Palm Beach County area of Florida. Actually, he's a congressman from a relatively liberal, democratically oriented district, but he's been elected over and over and over again 6 times. He's relatively conservative. He was one of the, he voted for the Defense of Marriage Act, which basically forbids gay marriage. And secretly, and actually kind of an open secret among his colleagues, he is a gay Republican. He's only outed himself just now after a scandal. Now, what is this scandal? Scandal is a congressional page. Now, pages are high school students. Interns are a little bit older. They're usually in college or sometimes after college. And interns help, they do a lot of gophering too, but they're also in there learning how to draft legislation, so on and so forth. Pages the guys who work for the clerk of the House, and they basically bring coffee to the congressman or seat somebody down or help out with the folks in the gallery. But they're learning a lot about how the government works, and a lot of former pages have gone very, very high in their subsequent life. And of course, to get to be a page, you pretty much have to know somebody. It's kind of a key way to begin a political career or a law career, something like that. And it's a good start. So usually pages are go through either know somebody in Congress or have a backer or somebody to suggest them to the program, and they actually live away from home in Washington. They're from the various districts, and they're basically custodians of the House of Representatives. So the House of Representatives and the clerk of the House basically act as their parents away from home. So that's basically who they are. And what happened over here? Well, for years, Foley has been really big on the page program. He's gotten very, very friendly with the pages. Anybody who's been watching all of these tabloid shows, which I've been watching, and I've been watching and watching and watching, knows that he cried one year, that was 2001, when he made his speech to say goodbye to that year's round of pages. And he's been caught. Basically, a page came forward with overly friendly emails, and that got to ABC News. When Foley found out about it, he started, of course, strategizing. His biggest supporter and his campaign manager is his sister, and they were meeting together. Then ABC called him and said, these are the emails. I have copies of IMs that are outrightly explicit. And I won't go into what they said, but there was a very big indication that these were come-ons to kids who are by and large 15 to 17. So they're underage. What does that make Foley? Well, what Foley did at that point was to put out a outright resignation. He just resigned on the spot and got in his car and started heading home to Florida. Now, a lot of people would be able to overcome those kind of things. And it all depends on what was his life, what was he doing, and how out of bounds or out of control was this guy. Now, admittedly, this is a pretty awful admission. However, there's no evidence yet that he actually molested any of these kids, although it does sound like from these IMs, which are instant messaging paging, that he sure would have done something if they had been willing. We don't know that, and I can't really make that conclusion, but it sure sounds like it. There's an incident when he got drunk and was stopped by a Capitol Hill policeman because he was immediately going down to the Page dorms in the middle of the night, 2, 3 in the morning. So there's that incident. So he has a lot of history behind him of incidents. And now the situation is, well, there's 2 questions. One, did the House, Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader, the authorities of the Republican Party, who did not share the information when they found out about it with the Democrats, but instead handled it within their party, did they protect him? What did they know, and when did they know it? And was there an outright cover-up or not? So that's the big issue now in the whole thing. Now, I think what everybody else is interested in is what has Foley done in the course of all these years. This guy has been in the closet his entire life. They've gone down to Palm Beach, where he was kind of, again, over there, it was kind of an open secret that his sexual orientation might not have been what he claimed it to be. He never admitted it until about a couple days ago that he was gay in public. He's been seen with a lot of celebrities. He was a bigwig in the social circles of that area. He was always going to parties. He wanted to be, after his congressional career, to be appointed the head of the MPAA, which is the lobby for the movie industry. And they say that if a celebrity showed up in Washington, he would practically trample everybody else in order to get on, get the picture first and have a picture shaking his hand or putting his arm around a celebrity. So he loved celebrity, he loved movies, and he always wanted to be the Motion Picture Association of America head, which is the head of the movie industry lobby. So what does that mean? Or first of all, what's my take on it? Again, it's hypocrisy. He's been in the closet all this time. His partners and his Republican colleagues have been kind of tough especially with the religious right on gays and gays issues, pushed the against domestic partnership as well as gay marriage and all that good stuff. And I'm no big fan of gay marriage or whatever, but I don't have a problem with it either. But I do feel that anybody should be allowed to get benefits for a partner that they live with, especially unmarried straight people. So if somebody is living with a girlfriend, and especially if they have children, they should be able to go to the hospital and be allowed in, even though they're not direct relatives. And they can do that through domestic partnership. The Republicans have been really deaf on domestic partnership. And so was Congressman Foley. So there's a lot of talk about, well, he's a hypocrite, blah, blah, blah. And some of the congressmen that have been perhaps known about this, known about his come-ons to underage pages for a long time, are some of the most conservative congressmen out there. So what do you do there? There's been a lot of talk about, well, Gary Studs was a Democratic congressman in 1983, and he actually molested a 17-year-old boy, and he was a page too. So obviously both sides have done it, blah, blah, blah. Well, again, yes, that may be true 23 years ago, and the Republicans are all outraged about it at the time. So, and they're certainly not outraged about this, or some of them are and some of them aren't. However, there's a lot of defensiveness over it. Now, what I'm wondering is, why did Foley, the minute he heard that there was more to it than just overly friendly emails, upped and resigned and left. He's had a 12-year career with the House. He was head of the caucus that pushed a law to make it a crime, actually, for people to solicit sex with minors over the internet. He's a relatively powerful congressman, and he's one of these guys who could raise $100,000 at a shot. In fact, in 2005, when the first inklings went to the actual top management, in fact, I think this was 2004, he actually raised $100,000 for the Congressional Committee, which hands out money to other congressional candidates for the Republican Party. So he's a very good fundraiser. He has a lot of money on his side, and yet he upped and quit at the first hint of scandal. Now, is it because he was just afraid that they might out him because he's gay? Well, in fact, he was outed in 2004 when he wanted to run for senator, and an alternative magazine put on their cover, "Is Mark Foley, Representative Mark Foley, gay?" So it doesn't seem like that is his big worry. And even though these other emails kind of, well, I mean, pretty much indicated that he was coming onto these underage pages, I don't know, another guy might have just said, look, you know, I'm going to hanker down, I'm going to deny, I'm going to make these people reinterpret, make it look like it wasn't as bad as it was, so on and so forth, and just kind of hang on and see if I get reelected or not. He upped and resigned from the House even before the leadership, and Speaker Hastert has already said that it was a surprise to him that Foley resigned. So it wasn't even that big a deal. It wasn't like everybody was calling on him to resign, and then he resigned. He resigned first. So I feel that there must be another shoe dropping. Not just the shoe of, did the leadership of the Republican Party cover up, know about his activities and cover it up, but there must be something more to it. He has been very cagey over his whole career and lifetime. His parents didn't know that he was gay. His sister did. Even in Palm Beach, they don't have stories of who he went out with or what he did or so on and so forth. So I'm sure that somebody's digging into it, and now that it's such a public story, it's very possible. It's actually going back to 2003 now that he came on to various pages, but there's been no story yet about any underage person that he may have actually physically done something with. And I'm not saying that I know about it, I'm not saying I've read about it, but I'm just wondering whether he would resign on the spot before anything really came out, or as it was about to come out, unless there's some fire where the smoke is, unless he's actually done something or somebody's out there who can accuse him of having done something. He went out there and had his lawyer do a press conference about a week after the scandal started and said basically, oh, I'm an alcoholic. He checked himself into rehab. So, of course, checking himself into rehab means he doesn't have to answer questions. And he doesn't have to do press conferences or anything like that. And that he was molested as a child by a priest, he claims. He didn't say who, he didn't say what. The Archbishopric of Palm Beach, or the Diocese of Palm Beach, a little bit upset with him because now all the priests that he dealt with are under suspicion, and they basically called on him to say who it was and to report if anything really happened. It's hard to say. This guy's been ensconced under the closet so long that it's hard to say whether he's a truth teller. So is he just saying that to try to get a little sympathy, and actually undermining or even attacking his own church as a result? Or did something happen to him and he's gone through an entire lifetime without reporting it? However, doesn't seem to have any compunctions about coming on, if not more, to teenage boys. So it's a pretty awful situation. And it's doubly awful because this is the party that was very, very overtly moralistic and angry at Clinton for lying about sex and covering it up. So, is that happening over here? How do you even respond to a scandal like this outside of changing the subject? And just for information, and of course this is going to be out of date terribly, the clerk of the House went to Kirk Fordham, who was Foley's chief of staff, who went to Scott Palmer, which is Hastard's chief of staff, and said that there were things that were happening with Foley way back in 2003, or this is 2005, no, this is 2003, that there was inappropriate behavior with pages way back then. So did the House leadership, did they cover it up? I have a feeling that this story at least is not going to die, at least until the election, and the next time I do a show, there'll be more to talk about. My name is Reed Silverne. Name of the show is Fed Pride. I apologize for the first minute of the show. Well, there's a little confusion, but I'm on the program now, and I'm on Saturdays, and I believe on Tuesdays, so please come in.